The US releases an updated military strategy listing Islamic State and Russia as major security threats to international law. Also, international creditors slammed the door on talks with Greece before Sunday's austerity referendum, while the attacks on the Greek leadership grow more personal. Wildfires rage once again near Ukraine's Chernobyl exclusion zone, prompting experts to raise the alarm over possible health threats. Thanks so much for joining us this hour. My name's Neil Harvey. You're watching RT International. The US military has outlined what it considers to be the biggest threats to international security, putting Russia on a par with the Islamic State. It's not the first time that such a claim has been made.
Russian aggression in Europe recalls the days when large nations trampled small ones in pursuit of territorial ambition. The brutality of terrorists in Syria and Iraq forces us to look into the heart of darkness.
In the latest update for the national military strategy, the Pentagon notes that it can use force to counter those that pose a challenge to international law. RT's Gani Chichikan looked into the document.
Well, the strategy that the Pentagon put out there, by the way, this is the first update since 2011, basically says that not only will the U.S. use military force to protect its own interests, it may also do so to counter those states or forces that challenge international law and norms. So who are the so-called revisionist forces, according to the United States military? The document mentions Iran, Russia, China, and extremist organizations like the Islamic State. As far as the above-mentioned nations are concerned, it reads, none of these nations are believed to be seeking direct military conflict with the United States or our allies. Nonetheless, they each pose serious security concerns, which the international community is working to collectively address by way of common policies, shared messages, and coordinated action. End of quote. The strategy authors also note that, quote, today the probability of U.S. involvement in interstate war with a major power is assessed to be low but growing. Now, while the paper puts Russia in one line with the Islamic State as a threat to global security, it's a little more careful with the choice of words when it comes to China, perhaps because of America's economic ties with China. It reads, we support China's rise and encourage it to become a partner for greater international security. However, China's actions are adding tension to the Asia-Pacific region. For example, its claims to nearly the entire South China Sea are inconsistent with international law. Now, about international law, obviously, the document does not explicitly say we're going to use our military to police the world. But it does suggest that if someone, in the eyes of the United States, is violating international law, then the U.S. may define it as a threat to its security and allow itself to take unilateral action. One may ask what happens when the U.S. violates international law, as it has happened before on a number of occasions. Who's going to take action then? You will not find an answer to that question in this document.
Well, the US has been involved in a series of conflicts around the globe in the past few decades, and the legality of many of them has raised questions. Back in 1999, US-led NATO airstrikes on Serbia, which claimed the lives of almost 500 civilians, were conducted without the green light of the UN Security Council. The invasion of Iraq in 2003 was not authorized by the UN either. The current airstrikes in Syria are another example where action was carried out without international approval. And on numerous occasions, US drone strikes in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Yemen have been dubbed a violation of law. Anti-war activist Brian Becker thinks that the global ambitions of the US are on shaky ground.
The United States realizes that its dream of a unipolar world, the dream that started to become an operational doctrine for the United States following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, that dream has turned into an impossible goal. That, in fact, Russia is back on its feet. It's asserting its own interests. China is growing. It's trying to grow peacefully and rise peacefully and become a medium-range power. But the United States sees that Russia and China and Iran and other countries in the world, including South Africa and Brazil and India, are unwilling to be just victims of U.S. hegemony, that they're asserting their own national interests. And so I think the United States sees that now as a threat to its fantasy of unipolar domination following the collapse of the USSR.